Hello, my name is Malcolm Coates. I'm the Quality and Risk Partner for Deloitte here in the Middle East, and I'm here today to talk about the future of accounting. I see the main impact and drivers of change here in accounting across the Middle East as being really four. Those being globalization, technological changes, technology, and the impact of the regulator across all companies here in the Middle East. So firstly, thinking about technological changes. So what are we really talking about? We're talking about the impact of artificial intelligence around cloud-based solutions, around blockchain, and how those will really impact the future of individuals here in the Middle East. Then talking about regulatory. So we're seeing an increased level of regulation coming from both the government, both the stock exchanges and also the monetary authorities here in the Middle East that is really changing the landscape and the way in which accounting is going to be performed in the future. Then talking about globalization. So we're really talking about the use of shared service centers, around alternate delivery centers, on how basically the landscape will change and the way that companies are really diversifying their finance functions across many markets. And then finally, technical changes. So really the impact of the way that accounting standards are really beginning to change. We see the new 3 standards coming in right now, so IFRS 9, IFRS 15, IFRS 16, and really the way that they're going to impact the way companies account for those in the future. So we're really sort of seeing that the way that we see people coming through is that you have to have many differing skills as we go forwards. Not only does an individual need to be someone that has technological ability, but also being able to use technology to be able to respond to the impact of the regulator, etc. And we see that at differing levels across the different companies that we have here. So really looking at the governments and their the way that they're beginning to account, etc. So the implementation of IPSAS and other regulatory impacts on them. In addition to that, when we look at the large companies, the additional regulatory pressures by the actual capital markets authority, by the stock exchanges, etc., and the way that the accountants need to ensure that they have those technical skills to be able to account appropriately for the new standards that are coming. And then finally, in looking at the small companies, really the big question is around big gap versus small gap. Should a small company really be applying the same accounting standards as the large companies that we see here in the Middle East? The impact of digitalisation and innovation on accounting is really changing the landscape in which people need to work and to operate. You know, the impact of technology, the impact of other innovative ideas is really changing the day-to-day basis on what people have to do and the way that they're actually performing and doing it. You know, entities will still enter into, complex transactions. We will still need accountants to be able to look at those judgments, be able to assess that. But a lot of the routine, mundane transactions, the day-to-day operations that go through will just continue. I think that going forwards that those are going to be performed by the robots, the artificial intelligence, etc. And therefore, as a result of that, the emphasis that the accountants will need to play and their roles will be very different in the world tomorrow as it is today. So what people need to do to equip themselves is really we need to start looking at the graduates that are coming out of the universities. Are those graduates really up to the task that we're going to be looking for them to be able to perform. Also, we're going to look at a different type of person that's going to be coming out of those institutions. So specifically around the fact that, yes, they will need the technical aspects, but they're going to have to be able to relook at data analytics. They're going to have to be able to look at the different type of core competencies that they have, and therefore, as a result of that, their reasoning, their critical assessment is going to have to be able to change. And those are the type of facets that we're going to have to be looking in people to be able to come forwards and to work. Then with our current workforce, we're going to have to really relook at them to see how we can train them better to be able to answer the questions, the challenges that they will face in a very changing world that we see. 2030 is a few years away. As we see the way that we see the expansion and the changes currently and the use of technology, I think that what we will see is a significant change in the way that we account for things. Standards are changing, complexities are coming in. There is a significant amount of more complexities that we see. What will accountant look like in 2030? Maybe very different from what we see today. Maybe there won't be any accountants, and maybe everything will be done by robots and artificial intelligence. But I still believe that the way that there are certain aspects of judgment, estimates, etc. still involved, that still we will need the human being still to be there to make those judgments and make those estimates.